Quite sure if the slot before lunch or after lunch is the best. I'm sure you're all looking forward to a nice legendary K&L lunch. But before then, we just thought we'd give you a brief overview on how we're progressing with High Speed 2. So my name is Will Bentley. I'm the Programme Controls Director for High Speed 2. And stood next to me is Simon Longstaffe, our Head of Cost Estimating and Cost Management. We'll begin by telling you a bit about ourselves and the understanding of the ambitions and challenges about this inspiring programme. We'll give you a bit of an overview of what High Speed 2 is about and why High Speed 2 will be a catalyst of growth for Britain. Then we'll take a look at how we're organising ourselves for delivery, especially around the contextual elements of commercial and procurement strategies, in particular our contracting approach to frameworks, our commercial behaviours and our systems. And finally, we'll discuss our need to be mindful of the technology challenges we will face, in particular how our data strategies and BIM strategy is starting to develop and how these will become an intrinsic part of a progressive and future-facing infrastructure programme.
So, what places me in good stead to realise the need for and to understand the drivers behind High Speed 2 is, one, my daily commute on the West Coast Main Line, which is always fun, and my career in major infrastructure. I think we've gone a bit far on the slides. Despite my best efforts, I have spent the majority of my working life in the rail industry, and when working for Network Rail, spent a lot of time travelling up and down the rail network on increasingly cramped trains. I studied construction management at university, and during my career I've been fortunate enough to work on many headline infrastructure projects such as Jubilee Line, Crossrail, Network Rail, and I've been involved in High Speed 2 for the past 4 years. I worked in Canary Wharf in the 90s before the Jubilee Line opened, when the only access was the DLR. We're now back working at Canary Wharf, and the Jubilee Line has been transformational. In fact, it's helped regenerate Docklands to the point where Crossrail is now necessary. So HS2's vision is to sort of transpose that to the country. It's to be a catalyst for growth across Britain, to create a sustainable national economy for Britain, because as difficult as it may be to acknowledge, we have a two-speed economy. The differences between the north and south are stark.
I've spent most of my working life travelling from North Wales to London on a frequent basis. My wife and I decided over 25 years ago to base our roots in North Wales amidst our wider family network. Consequently, I've travelled up and down and across the country for decades, often on congested motorways and ever increasingly cramped trains. I studied economics at university, and during my career I've been fortunate to work on many large infrastructure programmes, including the Channel Tunnel, West Coast Route Modernisation, Terminal 2 at Heathrow prior to joining High Speed 2. My career in major infrastructure and macroeconomics has placed me in a good stead for the need and for them to understand the drivers behind High Speed 2. Simon just said the differences between the North and the South are stark. The North lacks connectivity and productivity. The government's determination to create a northern powerhouse is a key enabler to unlocking some of the productivity and investment, and a trans-North policy is actually high on the agenda. The South has overcrowded transport and an overheated property market. Overall, the result is the country is not fulfilling its economic potential. HS2 is the opportunity to build a world-class infrastructure that will tackle some of the toughest challenges in our country. It will change the economic geography of the country by providing high-speed connections between London, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Edinburgh and Glasgow.
I'll keep giving you a sneak preview of the next slide. And as a northerner, I actually object to that picture, the stereotyping of the north, because there's frankly not enough rain on it. So, there you go. So, London is the engine of the British economy, which we've spoken about, but its transport, health and education infrastructure is struggling to keep up with its growing population. Many people and businesses locate to London because it's the only choice and not because it's the best choice. Negative consequences for many of the people who live and work in London include overcrowding on transport network, on Exhibit A on the left, demand for education and healthcare which exceeds supply, and house prices which are up to 3 times as expensive in London than they are in the northwest, which causes difficulties for many people, especially families and key workers. The Midlands and the North have untapped resources. There is fine universities and high-tech manufacturers, but they are constrained by a lack of connectivity. and journeys between UK cities take longer compared to similar journeys in other countries. So the solution, not easy. The challenges are long-term and complex, and those that we develop must be of an equal scale to the challenge. Back in March of this year, the Chancellor established Transport for the North, bringing together the Northern Transport Authorities and tasked it with working with government to create the first ever comprehensive transport strategy, which will cover roads, rail, freight, airports and smart ticketing. The report also set out a long-term strategy to connect up the north. It wants to set out journey times, how they can be slashed between major northern cities with investment in high-speed rail, developing new east-west road connections and introducing smart tickets across the region. The report also set out a long-term strategy to connect the great cities of the north with a network of high-quality rail connections.
So we need to invest in our transport infrastructure. Doing nothing is not an option. Britain's population is expected to swell by nearly 10 million people over the next 25 years. Our urban population will have increased by 14 million by 2050, more than the combined populations of Greater London and Greater Manchester. So the UK needs efficient city-to-city connections. But the UK is still using the infrastructure originally built by the Victorians. No major railway has been built up north for over 120 years. Our railways have to carry intercity, local and freight services all on the same lines. So problems on one service affect all the other services. Delays are common. On the West Coast Main Line, 15% of trains regularly run more than 10 minutes late, even after a £9 billion upgrade. Rail demand continues to rise. Rail passenger trips have more than doubled since the mid-1990s to more than 1.5 million journeys. According to Network Rail, the West Coast Main Line is effectively full over key route sections, and neither the Midland Main Line nor the East Coast Main Line can carry any additional service. Rail freight demand is also increasing. The Rail Freight Group expects volumes to be around 120% of current levels by 2030.
So, HS2 is a strategic intervention that will change the economic geography of this country. It will increase the overall capacity of the rail network by almost 20,000 passenger seats per hour, and this will free up capacity on existing lines, and the number of short-distance commuter seats will double. Also, an estimated 500,000 lorries will be taken off our roads.
It will be integrated into the existing rail service as soon as Phase 1 is completed. High-speed trains will serve destinations beyond Birmingham. High-speed 2 rolling stock will be capable of running on both the new high-speed lines and the existing network. Phase 2 will take high-speed 2 to Leeds, Manchester and provide connections in between. Journeys that are currently time-consuming, unreliable and uncomfortable will be fast, frequent and stress-free on high-speed 2. As you can see from the slide, journey times between our major cities will shrink. Birmingham to London will take less than an hour. Birmingham to Leeds, over an hour quicker. Birmingham to Manchester will take half the time it takes today. Over time, the connected cities will be able to work, trade and compete with each other. Knowledge sharing, innovation will become easier and faster. Tourism, sporting events and concerts all become more readily accessible. Business will change their investment decisions. The construction of High Speed 2 is an opportunity to begin rebalancing Britain's economy long before the first trains start to run in 2026. This just isn't about building great infrastructure, it's about how we build it, leaving a long-term legacy. The scale and duration of the build programme means we can use it to create deep, long-lasting changes in skills, jobs and diversity. This will benefit everyone in Britain and will create jobs across the whole country. We'll need senior engineers and technical experts like yourselves with world-class skills and decades of experience. We'll also hire many new graduates, and approximately 2,000 apprentices will have their first jobs on High Speed 2. We'll need people from dozens of different disciplines, people who have worked in the rail sector for all their lives, and people who will bring expertise gained from careers in other industries. As we build High Speed 2, we will support the government's work with local areas to develop the HS2 growth strategies. This will boost economic growth, attract inward investment, create more jobs. This year sees the opening of our new offices in Birmingham, where 1,500 skilled job opportunities will be created. Just to give you a feel of the overall scale of the programme and the challenges ahead, here are a few headline statistics. In particular, the overall length is 230 kilometres, which is about 25% actually in tunnels. It's also worth highlighting that about a third of this length is in cuttings, which reduces the visual impact of the railway. We are looking to reuse 90% of the 128 million tonnes of excavated materials within the programme. Additionally, there are over 300 over and under bridges along the route and no level crossings.
We put this one in just to see if anyone was still awake at this point, as we start mentioning NEC. So our commercial strategy has taken on board feedback from the supply chain, and where appropriate, NEC will be used.
In November 2014, we began our engagement with the supply chain. This is far earlier in the process than other major infrastructure projects. We conducted a programme of market engagement activities because we had two important questions to ask the supply chain. We wanted to hear detailed feedback on our proposed approaches to procurement, including how we plan to package and contract our scope of works. And we wanted to know what the likely appetite to compete for HS2 work was. Together, the companies that we engage with employ 250,000 people and have a collective turnover of £1 trillion. The market was in broad consensus with High Speed 2 on a high-level packaging and contracting principles. So we'll be minimising interfaces across our contracts as much as possible while making sure the packages are not too large to be uncompetitive. On civil engineering works, there was agreement that big, geographically based packages would work best. We have reviewed our specific packages to ensure that they are the right size with the right interfaces for each category. Early contractor involvement has been confirmed as the right approach.
So talking to the supply chain has also helped us develop our strategy across the categories of spend, especially where there's broad consensus from the market. Our Phase 1 strategy now includes large geographical civil engineering packages split across 2 or 3 tranches. Tranche 1 is the tunnels and surface route civil engineering. There'll be 4 contracting packages for tunnels, and there's 3 to 6 contract packages for the surface routes. Tranche 2 is stations, of which there'll be 4 contract packages, matching the number of stations. And there's a third tranche of packages that covers railway systems, and by that we mean the signalling, communications, power and track. Forms of contracts often take a life of their own, and in certain organisations can sometimes create far more complexity than is needed to deliver the job. HS2 itself is complicated enough, so we want to use forms of contract that will be simple to implement, and not ones that add complexity, and those that foster collaboration. Mentioned a few slides ago, the feedback from the supply chain was that NEC3 should be used for the procurement of our key civil engineering categories, and we agree. The NEC3 suite is designed to facilitate collaboration. It will incentivise success, and it will allocate risk appropriately, and it will enable integration throughout the supply chain. We will actively promote the use of NEC3 for our Tier 1 suppliers' own subcontracts. We expect similar terms and conditions to be cascaded down the supply chain, and we intend to implement the NEC3 with a minimal use of Z clauses. We know this is what the market wants, and we know this is what most clients say they'll do, but we are committed to deliver. However, NEC3 is unlikely to be suitable for all categories of procurement, for example, rolling stock. But on all the forms of contract we use, the terms will be designed to facilitate collaboration across and down the supply chain.
It's been reported again recently that more than 90% of specialist contractors still have to wait more than 30 days to be paid on public sector contracts. I think we're guilty of that as well. But, you know. The way we pay our suppliers is one of the key elements of managing risk and ensuring the right types of behaviours. High Speed 2 will implement fair payment principles on all its contracts. On our Tier 1 contracts, we do not intend to withhold retention. For the smaller and medium-sized organisations through our supply chain, we are discussing how we can ensure fair payment. We're considering the possibility of direct payments to subcontractors where the main contractors are failing to do so in the timescale that we require. Fair payment is one of the key ways that we meet the challenge that Lord Dayton set us to make opportunities accessible for businesses of all sizes in the High Speed 2 Growth Task Force report. There is a place for all tiers of the supply chain in the delivery of High Speed 2. We are going to use a balanced scorecard to choose our suppliers, which maps against our strategic goals, as shown on the slide. We'll be looking at specific deliverables, which will help us to achieve our overarching goals. They will, of course, need to be measurable so we can monitor progress. Safety, the environment, being on time, on budget will obviously appear in all our contracts, but we may not have deliverables for each strategic goal in every contract. Each contract will include the appropriate goals. We'll also be assessing other factors in bids, including health and safety, as mentioned, past performance, capability, collaboration, approach to work, including innovation, ability to use BIM, in addition to what you'd expect in terms of the ability to cost the job, commercials, risk, overhead and project profit. We are looking at instigating and further developing BS 11000, collaborative business relationships and how we want to develop and improve the standard for collaborative working in construction. And through BS 11000 we hope to and will provide collaborative, successful with chosen partners, share costs, risks, resources and responsibilities, build better relationships that lead to improved results. The use of BIM is another area through which High Speed 2 will be adopting collaborative behaviours. And also, as demonstrated, early engagement with the supply chain is something that's been done far earlier than usual on a project of this scale. Another area of collaboration is in the workforce. High Speed 2 will be a catalyst for changes in many areas, including a step change transformation of the skill set of the infrastructure industry. A 20-year project which can train and deploy an entire generation. High Speed 2 will develop the talents of its whole workforce. Our workforce will set new standards in infrastructure design. We will build High Speed 2 using the most advanced construction techniques, such as BIM and off-site modular assembly. The 15-year plus pipeline of work means that businesses will be able to invest in their workforce, their products, and their research and development capabilities. The construction industry is not diverse. Nor is this actually looking at it. The construction is not diverse. On HS2, our equality, diversity and inclusion policy addresses the need for inclusivity in our workforce and in the planning, design, construction and operation of the High Speed 2 project.
So we'll be recruiting men and women from a wide range of cultural and social backgrounds, and we will attract new people into the infrastructure and construction industry. Brilliant. I'll try that word again. Britain has brilliant surveyors and engineers, but we don't have enough of them. By 2020, British businesses will need nearly 2 million workers with engineering skills. Every year for the next 10 years, the UK will need approximately 87,000 graduate engineers. In 2013, the UK fell 36,000 short of this target, which is one of the reasons why we're opening the new National College for High-Speed Rail. And it's not just HS2 who are aware of this. The RICS have been looking at the future surveying through its RICS Futures workstream, and have identified that they need to support employers in attracting and retaining a more diverse talent pool to run the businesses of the future. Doing this involves establishing partnerships that link employers, professional bodies and educators to better understand supply and demand for talent in our sector and the type of skills that firms are seeking. New education options are also required to encourage and verify expertise in emerging areas of practice. With regard to the creation of the new infrastructure assets, the recommended default position, as I've said before, is that HS2 Limited will undertake all activities using the NEC3 suite of contracts across Tier 1 and will encourage its use at Tier 2. The NEC3 form of contract may not be suitable for the procurement of rolling stock or other rail systems because in that market other suppliers are used to working with other forms of contract. And in adopting the default position of utilising NEC3 contracts as far as practicable, HS2 Limited will ensure that we promote and manage collaborative behaviours.
So we're currently writing our delivery strategy. The delivery strategy is the document that sets out the organisation, its maturity, its capability, how it will evolve, how it will develop, and how it will become the target operating model for the High Speed 2 railway in the future. Its sub-strategy sets out how High Speed 2 will deliver the programme. The commercial strategy is a sub-strategy which describes High Speed 2's approach to its contractual relationships with third parties from procurement to contract close. The overarching commercial principles will be enshrined in the various sub-strategies and management plans that will form the detailed basis of how High Speed 2 manages its relationships with its contractors over both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Many suppliers will be required to develop innovative design solutions to meet new high-speed design standards, construct tunnels, surface routes and stations, and develop, build and install sophisticated railway systems, including new high-speed rolling stock. Integration will be a substantial challenge. The length of the railway means the construction will take place simultaneously in several areas, and the impact on existing railway and utility infrastructure is very significant and will require a great deal of engagement and coordination with Network Rail and a multitude of utility companies and their regulators. The project duration creates its own special challenges. Taking the design and construction periods from Phase 1 and Phase 2, High Speed 2 Limited will be in asset creation mode for the best part of 2 decades. This has strong implications for the commercial strategy, for the way risk is identified and managed, and the way that High Speed 2 Limited creates, nurtures and manages commercial relationships in what is likely to be a number of changing economic cycles. High Speed 2 Limited is a wholly owned by the Secretary of State for Transport, so the commercial strategy takes into account government objectives identified in such documents as Construction 2025, the Rail Supply Group's Fast Track for Growth, and the relevant recommendation of the High Speed 2 Growth Task Force. High Speed 2 Limited strategies and plans are therefore designed to support the vital role that the project will play in supporting economic growth, skills and employment, and developing export potential. The cascade of our goals to our contractors on the supply chain will require them to comply with our corporate strategies on all matters as they affect the supply chain, and will therefore support High Speed 2 in achieving its wider social and economic objectives. For example, this will see measures associated with apprenticeships, other formal education such as NVQs and skills as developed in the High Speed 2 skills and employment strategy being incorporated into our procurement processes. In addition, there will be specific obligations and commitments in each relevant contract to support the National College for High Speed Rail.
So, to achieve our vision, mission and balanced scorecard objectives, we will ensure all commercial activities carried out by or on behalf of HS2 Limited will be guided by the overarching commercial principles. HS2 Limited will develop detailed procurement strategies, plans and contracting approaches with all of our suppliers and contractors to minimise whole life, whole system costs covering infrastructure, rolling stock, operations and maintenance within the project affordability criteria. We recognise that in order to achieve best affordable whole life value, effective relationships must be developed and maintained with contractors, suppliers and their supply chains as well. HS2 Limited will conduct commercial activities in a manner that satisfies the requirements of accountability and internal control in an efficient way, and one that complies with financial constraints and effectively manages commercial risk. We will provide and enforce effective, efficient and consistent procurement and commercial arrangements for procuring all works, products and services. Commercial activities will be aligned with the balanced scorecard objectives, and performance management will be consistently applied across all contracts.
Putting all that into practice now for some real stuff. We have an ambitious tender event and procurement schedule for Phase 1, both prior to and soon after Royal Assent, expected in December 2016. The Phase 1 engineering delivery partner is scheduled to be awarded in January 2016. Enabling work ITTs are due to be issued in October this year, with contract award in May 2016, before Royal Assent. The main civils construction contracts for the 3 areas of Phase 1, South, Central and North, are due to be let in December 2016 through April 2017 respectively.
In order to get to that point of delivery, we are currently working on all our systems and structures. So we've looked at the end game to decide how we set up our data structures. Everything will be hung off the asset register, that is our complete list of what we are building, meaning that we'll be able to track the construction costs, the risk, the schedule, the operation and maintenance costs against each structure. We will use this rich seam of data to inform procurement, our inflation calculations and all the other cost intelligence we require to successfully deliver a complex scheme. We're testing systems to ensure that they can carry this level of data, and we're expecting over 150,000 lines of data in our warehouse. The life cycle and maintenance model we're currently working on will increase this. So by focusing on the data that is structured well and is interoperable, then we can move to technologies as and when they arrive. So by trying to take technology out of the equation, we can be more flexible.
So let me tell you how we're going to organise ourselves so that we can use this technology. We've learned from other major projects that getting our data in order early is one of the main benefits of the new ways of working, of BIM and of asset information management. Therefore, we have defined our common data structures, our cost breakdown structures, our work breakdown structures. They are aligned to give consistency, and we have looked at the O&M requirements to ensure that the data structures will flow into that phase of the scheme. The asset data is the common denominator in our estimating, cost management, risk management and progress performance measurement systems. It is also naturally the basis for our BIM models. To give you an idea of the complexity of what we are trying to do, the scheme is somewhere in the region of 500 kilometres long. We'll have somewhere between 2,500 to 3,000 built assets on the full scheme. There are a mixed point of assets, bridges, viaducts, etc., and linear assets such as earthworks. We are currently piloting proof of concepts that test data transfer between our cost estimating and our BIM models, and similarly for scheduled data.
So the data structures that we talked about will underpin all our systems, and the slide here is showing how the estimating system will interact with all the other systems that we're looking at. So at the centre we've got our estimating system, we've got a life cycle model, we've got EB, which is our document control, at risk, data intelligence, which for us is benchmarking, etc. The risk management, BIM, Prism, which is our cost management, and our reporting cycles, all using the same levels of data so that we have a consistent piece of truth. Then when we move into delivery, we will have our cost management, which again interacts with schedule. Cost estimating system is pumping into that, reporting, and SAP, so that we have our as-built monies being reported on as well.
High Speed 2 is firmly committed to the development of the digital railway. The beauty of having a digital railway is that you can use it amongst other things. We're not just talking about how we operate or how we construct, but how we test it. We can test how we get people through stations, etc. It's certainly our aspiration to bring all those things together, and it will be possible. It's just a matter of time. Technological advancement is difficult to predict, and the trends that it enables are even harder. I certainly remember my Nokia phone getting the first text in monochrome. Quite impressed with that. We have an industry that is going through a digital revolution, and we need to go along with it. The cornerstone of estimating, cost management, payments and final accounting will be automated to some extent, and therefore the cost profession and indeed controls professionals need to find a way of staying relevant. We see this as a great opportunity. In the same way that a smartphone makes life easier, it can make you more productive, automation free, free up time for innovation, adding value and intellectual application. We'll need to create roles for data modelers. We deliberately hire people who understand data and look at it as data and not just conventional QSs or planners. We need to consider how professionally we create standard methods of data structures, standard methods of performance measurements. This is an area that will grow as projects all move to the digital way of working.
So at HS2 we have an opportunity to change the way things are done. And I've been a keen advocate of learning from other industries, oil, gas, energy, and indeed have recruited from these sectors to bring fresh thinking into the rail industry. Taking this learning a step further, we've started to look at sectors outside the norm, such as computer gaming. Gaming is an area that has online collaboration. You can be interacting with someone in real time on a different continent. The slide shows GarageBand, which is a tool that enables people to create their own songs. They can then share them across the room, across the globe, with just a few taps. It allows people to interact with friends on their devices, and the use of a cloud server allows people to keep up to date. This technology is a truly collaborative tool. This level of collaboration and cross-platform functionality is where I want to see estimating and cost planning in the near future. And a further area of interest is the graphics engines that are utilised in gaming. These could be adapted to be used on cost reporting, safety reporting, performance against schedule, etc. The opportunities are fairly endless. When you look at the image on the screen, you probably think you're looking at black and white photo. You're not. This is data. The data shown was captured from a van-mounted surveying unit, and all it did was drive around Shrewsbury town centre to capture the data. Technology like this means we could have drones flying the route measuring construction. The data could be mapped to schedule to see if construction is where it should be. And ultimately, I'd like to see it mapped to payments as well. And the power of a picture like this cannot be underestimated. People can see progress without squinting at an output from P6. There's a possibility that trains will be able to scan the track and potentially the surrounding infrastructure as they go up and down the route and feed data back to a central control point where algorithms will check for movement since the last train pass. This will modernise operations and maintenance of the railway. And the RICS Futures Workstream, which I spoke about a little bit before, has identified that as an industry it needs to create a culture that doesn't fear technology but actually embraces it.
So BIM is about the smart use of interoperable data, turning information into knowledge. There's no doubt most of you will be aware the government is mandating collaborative 3D BIM to level 2, with all projects and asset information, documentation and data being electronic on public sector projects by 2016. That's just less than a year away. This is a challenge for us adopting BIM on linear assets. We have a unique set of issues. We are in the vanguard of BIM in this sense. We found ourselves using phrases like dynamic segmentation.
Try dropping that one into conversation, it's quite easy. So, back in 2013, we created our BIM picture. What we basically did was we did workshops around the company. I was responsible for the devil, which is just coming up under construction sequencing.
Good figures.
BIM is not an icon on the desktop, or a program or an application, but it is actually a behavioural shift, one that you as surveyors need to be at the forefront of. We've recently announced that we have placed a 4-year contract for BIM technical services, and this contract will include professional support covering the planning and delivery of a range of activities, including BIM educational and assessment tools for the supply chain. And we want to work to help drive long-term efficiency and durability into asset management. It is almost inevitable that lower tiers of the supply chain will use whatever they're most comfortable with and trained up to use. And it will be up to us as a client to integrate that data, while the tier ones will have the responsibility to integrate and translate that. We will have a multi-vendor solution and we'll just have to deal with it. All of the feedback from the supply chain conferences is that we need to be more agnostic in our terms of software. And so we're working hard to ensure we've got the processes, the systems and the data structure which will enable us to integrate and use data from multiple vendors.
So thank you very much, everybody. We've had an overview of what High Speed 2 is about, how it will be a catalyst for growth in Britain, not just the actual end game, but also the construction phase 2. We've had a brief sort of view of the commercial and procurement strategies and the collective behaviours we're trying to engage, and then look at technology and how that's moving forward and how we need to be on the pace of it, mindful that technology is ever changing. So thank you very much, and it's time for lunch. Thank you.